All right, hi everybody, Mr. Schwarman here again, recording another video in my JavaScript little tutorial series. And this one is our third video, and it's going to be about prompts. But in this video, you're going to see a couple new things in addition to prompts in JavaScript. So first, I want you to notice that something's different from my first two examples. Now, and I'll go back to example 2. Remember, we were putting all of our script right in the HTML body right here. And that's something you are allowed to do, you're able to do. It works in HTML, but sometimes it is not preferred, especially when scripts get really, really busy, really, really crazy. So it is actually the preferred notation is what we have here. And sort of like a link or an image, I add to my opening script tag a source. And I say the source is my prompt tutorial.js. JS is a JavaScript file. And I'll show you first in my file explorer. So, I've got all of these in the same folder right now. I could show the entire path, but since they're in the same folder, I don't need the path. They see it locally. Here's my example 3 HTML file I'm working in, and here's that prompt tutorial JavaScript file that it is referencing. They're in the same folder. And here's what it looks like. It looks like this. So in other words, all this text in this JavaScript prompt tutorial JavaScript file, it sees it right here, and it runs it. And it's just a way to keep our HTML a little bit clean and organized. So now I'm going to leave the HTML and focus on the JavaScript part. So again, I've got this commented out. Now JavaScript comments out with 2 slashes, whereas HTML was the bracket and exclamation point. But 2 slashes comments this out. So this is all commented out. We're going to come back to this at the second half of the video. The first half, we've got 2 prompts. It's going to be a prompt, how many hands do you have? How many legs do I have? And so I want to show you what that looks like first. So I'll go to my website, I'll refresh it to load it up. How many hands do you have? And I get a box that I can put something in. I don't know, I've got 2 hands probably. How many legs do I have? I don't know, maybe I'm talking to a pirate with a peg leg, he's only got 1. I'll guess 1. And I'll click OK. But again, kind of like I confirm, if we don't do anything with that, it's just this. It's just, okay, I enter those, nothing more happened. So I want to show you a couple things. First, something you might not have noticed, but I want you to notice, is in the syntax here. In the hands prompt, I just say, how many hands do you have? And it's in those ticks, so it's a string. In the legs prompt, I say, how many legs do I have? Comma, and then I put 2 single quotes around a space. It's like a blank space. And let me show you what that looks like again. So I'll refresh it. How many hands do you have? It's totally blank, blinking cursor. Okay, I'll just leave it blank. How many legs do I have? You can see it's actually highlighted. It is actually showing that the default character is a space. And you might see it a little more obvious if I change the default character from a space to say 100. I'm talking to a centipede with 100 legs. If I save it and I refresh it, I got no hands. See, 100 becomes the default. So one, that can be useful if you want to have a default value for a prompt, but also some web browsers, if you leave it blank on the hands prompt where there is nothing, that can mess with some web browsers. So it's considered good practice to give it a blank value, but you certainly don't have to. Okay, but those don't seem to do anything on their own. Now, I'm going to comment those out, and I'm going to uncomment this. And this, you're not going to know what it does yet. You're going to see. But now I'm going to have a similar prompt. How many hands do you really have? And now I've got an alert, and it's going to alert that number. So let's save it and show what that looks like. How many hands do you really have? I've really got 2 hands. Okay. And then it alerts, says, hey, you got 2 hands. Which, there we go. Now I'm doing something with it. In addition to showing you that, I want to show you a few things we did. First, this right here, this let statement. This is called defining a variable. We're going to talk a little bit more about variables in later videos as well. But basically, a variable is a name for a container. It holds a value, and it can hold a number, or it can hold a string, it can hold text, it can hold true, false, it can hold a lot of things. This one, I'm naming it hands, and what it's going to hold is the answer to this prompt. So whatever the person puts in, they can put 100, then this program knows, okay, hands is 100, 2, 50, whatever they type into prompt. And then later, I call that when I say alert hands, because I named hands here. When I say alert hands, it says, oh, what did they put in for the prompt? They put in 2. I'm going to show 2. However, if you're like me, maybe you're a little tired of all these alerts, confirms, all these boxes popping up. So I'm going to comment out the alert, and I'm going to comment this console log. I'm going to show you 2 new things here. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to refresh it. So I still got my prompt. Now we're going to look at console log. Okay, prompt, how many hands do you really have? Now I'm a 3-armed man. I have 3 hands. I click OK. Nothing seems to happen because I got rid of that alert. Check this out. If I right-click anywhere on the screen and go to inspect, I'm going to get this console that lets me see a few things. So here, elements, it actually shows me the HTML code that generated this. This is the exact same code that's in my example 3 HTML. So it actually shows you where that comes from. But also useful is there's this thing called a console. A console is a place where you can, I can put values like that. I can put text like that, like the number of hands, without it necessarily showing up in an alert. Because maybe that alert gets cumbersome, but maybe I do want to write somewhere a value, a number, depending on the script. So for this, I want to write the number of hands they have. And check this out. That is what the console log command does. And I've got 2 of them. And they're the same, but they're different. So they both say the number of hands the user really has. And then we got this little thing here. And so what this does is I want it to say 2, right? If I put in 2, I want it to say 2. Or in the case I just did, I put in 3, I want it to say 3. So the way you can do that in JavaScript is so the variable hands holds that value. Right now it's 3. But I can't just say hands because they would think I just want the word hands because it's in a string. So what I need to do is basically tell it, hey, stop thinking this is a string for a second. And I do that with this here, this $, curly brace, and then the variable hands, and then closing curly brace tells it, hey, look for the variable hands and tell me what it is. And that's what happens here where it says 3. It doesn't print, $, curly brace, hands, curly brace. It prints the value. However, look at this. The number of hands usually has is $, curly brace, hands, curly brace. This is the exact same code. However, the second line prints that out. See, it prints $, curly brace, hands, curly brace. The reason is the quotation mark I use. So if I use a single quote or a double quote, right, like a quotation mark, a double quote, it'll consider the whole thing as a string. The backtick, which is at the top left of your keyboard, just to the left of the 1 sign, it's got the tilde. The backtick actually it's called extended functionality. So by doing a backtick, it says, oh, you're allowed to do things like this, do the $ hands to call the variable hands. And there's other things that you can do with backticks that you can't do with single or double quotes. So for a simple string, like, hi, my name is Tom, backtick, single quote, double quote, all do the same thing. But if I want extended functionality, I've got to use the backticks, and that's what we see here. So in this video, look, we saw how to use prompts, we saw how to define a variable, and we saw how to view the console log, and we also saw the difference between a single tick and a single quote. There you go.